Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Shane's Squirrel Shack, where we talk about autism awareness and all of that. And I want to thank you for tuning in to today's video. Today, I'm going to be talking about what it was like for me to find out I was autistic. And there's going to be two little stories that go along with that. One's going to be what it was like when my parents found out, and then I'm going to transition into what it was like when I found out. So, I was diagnosed at the age of 2 years old. I was pretty much exactly 26 months. I got diagnosed on St. Patrick's Day, actually. And so we went through several tests. I don't remember every one of the tests, but I remember being tested for deafness. I think Fragile X was one, and a few other ones. But I don't remember. I was kind of only 2 years old. But what I've been told was I went through a lot of testing, and one day I'm in this test, and the doctor comes out and he tells my parents, "You know your son's autistic, right?" And they didn't, and that was kind of the, "Oh, he's autistic" moment. And so my mother and father did everything they could to get me into as many early intervention programs as possible, find as many resources out as possible to get me into programs. And luckily enough for them on their side, a couple months after my diagnosis, my mother found out she was having twins. So she was in a little bit of a whirlwind herself, and 22 years later, I am insanely impressed in how much she's been able to handle, and trying to give the best possible to the three of us with my outstanding conditions, and her having to take on two new forms of life when she's trying to figure out what to do with this one. So props to her on that. And so my parents got me really into like early intervention, and just did everything they could to make sure I wasn't falling behind the curve anymore. And so therapies later, here I am. But my experience finding out I was autistic. So they didn't tell me right away. They didn't tell me. I was kind of 2 years old. So I'd be wah about it. Like, what's autism? What is even the word what, man? But I remember I was 9 years old, and it was during spring break. And this was back when I lived in Chicago. So all the kids on the block would get together on afternoons off, days off, summer vacation, and we would just all play around the block, riding bikes, playing chalk, all of that stuff. You know what kids do. And the parents would get together and do their thing. They talk about kids and soccer and being moms. So the one day my parents pulled me inside, and they're like, "Shane, we just want to let you know, you're autistic." They didn't say much about it. They just said, "Hey, you have autism." And I was just like, "Okay, can I go outside now?" 9-year-old autistic me not knowing how to process heavy conversations like that, or emotions like that, or, big news like that. I remember, and I'll talk about this in another video, and how I respond to things with emotion or empathy, that months later I had a weird response to the way when my grandfather passed. I didn't cry or anything. I was like, "Oh, I gotta write this down." So if you want to know more about how I used to and still might process certain emotions or lack thereof and deal with empathy, I had someone comment in a previous video that they would like to see that. Let me know if you guys would like to see that. Put it down in the comments right there. Anyways, so 9-year-old me finds out I'm autistic. Can I go outside? Okay, man. I didn't think of it much later until I transferred to a new school. We moved out of state, moved out of the city. Thank God. Let Chicago burn, please. I'm just kidding. If you're from Chicago, keep that city rocking and rolling, please. You gotta know. You gotta emphasize to someone who lived in Chicago for 9 years, and it's just like, oh God, Chicago. Come on. But anyways, I'm digressing and ranting. So fast forward a little bit. I'm in a new school, and I have a new student aid. I have new special classes that I'm in, new tweaks to my IEP, an individual education plan. And from my perspective started changing when I started to see that I had a new student aid, I had new this, and that. When in Chicago, I thought those were added perks to me. I thought that student aid was a special friend to me. I thought those out of classes were like little perks for me, like going into the therapy settings. It's like, oh, this is a special treatment thing for me, yay! And then I realized, I think as time went on, that no, this was different. This was therapy for me. This was this and that. And then I started asking and becoming more aware, of questions. And especially once I started seeing how kids looked at me differently, and how different we really were as someone like me versus my 10-year-old peers, I started having those questions, and I don't want to say doubts, but as I kind of learned more that student aid was there to make sure I was in line and all of that and not doing anything I wasn't supposed to, that's when I started kind of getting envious and angry about it. That's around the time I had a dream that I had a surgery on myself that I was removing my autism. Obviously, that's not going to work. So I think that might have made me a little angrier with things, and I wanted to turn down any help provided because I was like, if the other 22 kids in this classroom don't need it, why do I? And it made me really angry. I started lashing out at my student aides, my teachers. I started getting into trouble, and I just was not dealing with that well. I did not like having that label or having those IEPs placed on me where I had to take a test outside of in a different room, or I had to go to a different version of this class, or I had to had student aid A follow me around periods 1 through 4, then 5 through 6 for another. You get the gist of it. So I wasn't terribly happy about that. I was actually kind of peeved off about it. So I didn't respond to me finding out I was autistic very, very well at first. And I think especially at that time, you're 12, 13 years old, and those questions start to arise and your teen angst starts to creep in a little bit at the same time. I was a late bloomer, but still, you're 12, 13 years old, and so the themes of social acceptance and trying to fit the mold and all of that play in when you are still tied with these restrictions based off of your IEP that you can only do so much and be seen as so much. So that's how I reacted to me finding out I was autistic, and it was around that time when my journey started to begin. It's like, okay, I can't deal with this stuff in high school. What do I have to do to get rid of this IEP, student aids, and start the overcoming process? And that is where kind of things shifted, and that's where I'm going to end this video today, because that starts off a whole nother topic. So just wanted to share what it was like for me finding out I was autistic and kind of how I responded and went about it. So I hope this video might have related to a couple of you guys out there. You guys found it entertaining, whatever. I'm just trying to speak my truth and do my thing over here. So again, capping it off, if you like what you heard, give it a like, subscribe, drop a comment. What would you like to see Shane Squirrel Shack cover next? Would love to hear your thoughts. Your thoughts are what keeps this channel running. And I hope to see you guys hanging out in the shack in the next video. We'll be back.